Well, here's one for you. Hezbollah kidnaps a top U.S. security detail. That's one sizzling scenario from Joel Rosenberg's latest thriller centered on the showdown over Iran's nuclear program. Could it lead to war in the Middle East? That's the big question in what's called the Beirut Protocol. Chris Mitchell explains.
The Beirut Protocol uncovers the explosive dangers lurking just across Israel's northern border and throughout the Middle East. New York Times best-selling author Joel Rosenberg's new novel sets the scene with the kidnapping of a top U.S. security detail by Hezbollah that's taken into Lebanon through one of its terror tunnels. The political thriller, ripped from today's headlines, weaves a geopolitical web of war and peace, taking the reader from Iran's nuclear program to the White House Situation Room to the epicenter, Jerusalem.
Well, Author Joel Rosenberg is joining us from our Jerusalem bureau. Joel, you were known as the Nostradamus. You were sort of on top of things because you related prophecy of what's happening, but you have become a rather accomplished fiction writer. Is that the game on this Beirut Protocol?
Well, Pat, great to be with you, and shalom from Jerusalem. Look, I do not want to be predicting anything in the Beirut Protocol. But I will tell you that the novel is about the possibility of a third Lebanon war. Now, Lebanon has not really been on most Americans' radar screen for a while, except for the big explosion in Beirut last summer. But I believe that the convergence of forces and trend lines in the Middle East right now strongly suggests that a third Lebanon war is the most likely war scenario in the Middle East in 2021. And as you'll recall, because you covered the second Lebanon war in 2006, 15 years ago, in 34 days, 4,000 missiles were fired by Hezbollah, the Iranian terror proxy force in Lebanon. 4,000 missiles were fired at Israel. Now, senior Israeli security officials tell me it could be 4,000 missiles a day if a third Lebanon war breaks out. And the Beirut Protocol is a fictional account of how that may get triggered.
Well, you've got a tunnel where these guys come through the tunnel and capture. One of the people happens to be the son of the Israeli prime minister. It's a great story. Is this your future, is writing these tremendous books?
Well, look, one of the things about moving here, Pat, is that I've had 2 of my 4 sons have served now in the Israeli army. One was up on the Lebanon border. One is in special forces, just finishing. So it's interesting as a Jewish, evangelical, Israeli, American, to write plots about real-life potential dangers to Israel, to America, to our Arab allies. And as you say, the Beirut Protocol, Chapter 1, I'm not even giving anything away. It opens with our hero, Marcus Ryker, former Secret Service, former Marine, now working for the CIA. And he and his team are ambushed by a Hezbollah terror cell on that Israeli-Lebanon border where Chris Mitchell and I just were about a week ago. And that firefight then leads, as you say, to Hezbollah terror forces capturing Marcus and 2 of his colleagues, including the nephew of the Prime Minister of Israel, who's a young intelligence operative, and they're pulled into this terror tunnel that was previously unknown to the IDF, and they're pulled deep into enemy lines. And that's the setup. That's Chapter 1 of the Beirut Protocol, which now shows how a war can erupt so quickly, a devastating war between Israel and Lebanon, but it's really between Israel and Iran. Because Iran, Pat, as you know, is using Hezbollah and southern Lebanon as a forward operating base to position 150,000 missiles aimed at Israel. This is a devastating scenario.
Joel, when we were there the last time, they just were throwing rockets willy-nilly. Now they have targeted missiles that can hit targets on, command, and it's very, very dangerous. And so you're revealing something. Now, one of the things that were in this book that you kind of alluded to has to do with the rise of the Mahdi, the 12th Imam. Do you think those Iranians really believe that they're willing to sacrifice and have a bloodbath before he comes back?
Well, Pat, all Muslims believe that the Mahdi, or the savior in their eschatology, is coming. And they believe that Jesus is coming also, but not as the savior, not as the Son of God who was crucified and resurrected. They believe Jesus is coming as the deputy to the Mahdi. So all Muslims believe it. What makes the Iranian leadership different, and I would add the Hezbollah leadership today, the top leadership, they believe that the way to hasten or accelerate the coming of the Mahdi and the establishment of a global Islamic kingdom or caliphate is to annihilate two countries. I happen to be a citizen of both. Israel, which they all believe is the little Satan, and the United States, which they believe is the great Satan. And that's why our fate, American security interest, is so fundamentally linked to Israel, because our worst enemies that are developing the worst weapons and have the most likely chance of creating a new war that would draw us in, they are driven by this apocalyptic, genocidal eschatology or end times theology. It's very dangerous, and I'm not convinced that President Biden and his team are understanding that the signals that they're sending to Iran, which I believe are signals of weakness, a desperation to get back into the Iran nuclear deal, are actually emboldening the terror masters in Tehran.
Do you think the Israelis should make a preemptive strike somewhere along the way and knock out those nuclear facilities?
Well, I have been talking to Defense Minister Benny Gantz, other senior, current, and former Israeli intelligence officials. The feeling is that if Biden goes down the road of doing a flawed and weak nuclear deal, a 2.0 of the deal from a few years ago with Iran, and Iran is continuing to move steadily, I would even say rapidly, towards the enrichment of uranium to build those bombs, that the Israeli officials I'm talking to say we're getting to a dangerous point where we may not have a choice. The discussion here, Pat, in Jerusalem is very much like 2012. And that was the time when Netanyahu drew the red line famously at the UN, that he and his generals were saying, we might have to go. We don't want to do a preemptive strike against Iran's nuclear facilities. But if the United States and the international community won't find a way to force Iran to stop what they're doing, we might have to. Now, the key is Iran's number one retaliatory option is Lebanon. It's Hezbollah. It's those 150,000 missiles, which is far more than we had in 2012 or 2006. And that 4,000 missiles a day raining down on Israel, it would be devastating to life, to property, to the economy, to tourism. It is a worst case scenario, and the Beirut Protocol sort of envisions what it could look like. I just pray it doesn't happen.
Well, Joel, I want to commend you on this book. It is fabulously written. You're a terrific writer, and you've improved your craft dramatically. And this is a page turner, folks. I recommend it to you. You'll enjoy reading it. And the Beirut Protocol. Where is it, Joel? Wherever books are sold, I guess that's the answer, huh?
Well, yeah, thank you, Pat. First of all, thank you. And you've been so kind. I'm sorry I couldn't make my annual pilgrimage to Virginia Beach to be sitting with you, but our airports are still closed here. But yeah, this is launch day. So the Beirut Protocol is now available in every bookstore, in hardcover, ebook, and in audio format, wherever people like to get their books.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a page turner. It is a beautifully written book. As an author, I commend Joel on what he's done. But if this could be the trigger of some vastly larger war, I mean, he might be, again, the prophetic voice coming out. So by all means, get yourself a copy of this thing. It's released today, a Marcus Ryker novel. And it's a tremendous book. So.
Well, those of us who are Joel Rosenberg fans can hardly wait for the next page turner to come out.
This is it right